The OnePlus Nord. Here it is. We can talk about it now. This is Adam Conway with XJTV. So the OnePlus Nord is a true successor to the OnePlus X, which launched back in 2015 with OnePlus's kind of new refined focus on trying to get a mid-range device for cheaper. Because around this time was when the device prices started going up, and now we've ended up with the scenario where we have a OnePlus 8 Pro for 800 quid. Having said that, the OnePlus Nord is the company trying to go, right, well, we want a mid-range device. Here it is. This mid-range device I have some controversial opinions on. I don't know what the general consensus is on this device across multiple reviewers from different publications, but from my own experience, I'm not sure to what extent I can recommend this device. There is nothing wrong with the phone itself. I actually really like the OnePlus Nord for what it is, for what it provides, but I think the price is a little bit off. So firstly, I'm going to go through what's good about the device, and then I'm going to get into the bad stuff, and then I'm going to talk about why I think this price is too expensive. Just keep in mind, this device starts at €399 for the 8GB of RAM, 128GB of storage option, while the second model, the slightly spec'd higher one, starts at 12GB of RAM, 256GB of storage for €499. Kind of steep prices for a mid-range, I'm sure you're thinking. We'll get back to that. So for now, the things that I like most about the OnePlus Nord is firstly that yes, you get Oxygen OS, and with that you get the promise of software updates and you get the promise of security updates alongside open betas, hopefully, that the company has done with all of their flagship devices. Now, the company hasn't actually announced any of this yet, but it's assumed that because they have not announced it, that you will be getting that same 2-year software experience that you get with their flagships. So where you get 2 major upgrades and then a year of software security updates. I've been an open critic of OnePlus's Oxygen OS in the past. I don't necessarily believe it is the best Android skin out there. I'm not sure what it is. I haven't necessarily analysed it, but I don't think people saying that it is smooth, it is fast and all this, I don't think it really has a leg up in those departments. I don't think Oxygen OS is the best because of those reasons. In fact, Oxygen OS has a lot of issues in regards to removing background applications that are running and also not giving your background notifications. I have missed so many push notifications, even just with the Nord. I keep missing emails, I missed Snapchats, I missed WhatsApp messages because it did not push those notifications to my device. There were many times where I had to open Gmail and manually refresh just to get my emails. It actually was worse on the Nord than it was on the OnePlus 8 Pro and on the OnePlus 7 Pro, which is a problem when you consider that they have had all of this time to optimize and improve the software. And that's another thing. OnePlus has said with the version of Oxygen OS on the OnePlus Nord that they have over 300 improvements and optimizations. I don't know what those are, but they said they're there. Now, I've noticed one change is that the OnePlus Messages app and the OnePlus Dialer have actually been removed. They have been replaced with the Google Dialer and Google Messages. I don't know if this is a permanent change. I'm assuming it's going to be because they said that this is the exact same Oxygen OS that you will get on other devices, and it's not toned down at all. That was specifically harped on when they were giving us our briefings about the device. So I believe that this is a new thing for them going forward, that they are just going to focus using Google's package of apps. Now, obviously, you do still get OnePlus apps. You still get the OnePlus Gallery, the OnePlus Community, all of these things that kind of... these are the only changes, it's just Dialer and Messages, but I thought that was interesting to note. On top of that, you get the weird layout where, for example, to turn on dark mode, there is no dark mode toggle. There's a thing where you choose a theme, and then you choose nuanced dark, and that enables a system-wide dark mode that apps actually recognize. I don't know why that's a thing, rather than just having a dark mode toggle like on every other manufacturer's Android skin. Especially because when you change it to nuanced dark, it also changes the icon shapes. It changes your always on, or not always on, sorry, your ambient display page. Now again, I'm not saying Oxygen OS is bad, I just think it's kind of overrated and treated as if it is the best Android skin by far without many issues, when in reality I don't think that's really the case. I like Oxygen OS, and I mean I've been using the OnePlus Nord as my daily driver since I received it. It was about 2 weeks ago now. But it's not by far the best that I have used, and I think that alone kind of points to the fact that, I mean, I've used ColorOS devices, I've used EMUI devices, I've used One UI devices, and while obviously EMUI and One UI especially are very different to stock Android, ColorOS now looks very much like Android that you'd get on the Pixel. And I like ColorOS more than I like OxygenOS. That is definitely a controversial opinion. Regardless of what I say about the Nord, the fact I like ColorOS is probably a controversial opinion. I hate ColorOS 6.1. The one that looked like an iOS ripoff, but that's besides the point. But speaking of those optimizations, I imagined that battery life would be one of those optimizations, because if you remember with the OnePlus 7 Pro, the battery life was actually kind of poor because of that 90Hz display. That doesn't seem to be the case with the OnePlus Nord. I have been getting consistently around 4 to 6 hours of screen on time. It's not godlike battery. I do have to charge it maybe like towards the end of the day, like not when going to bed, but a bit before that. But still, I mean, like, it's a good battery for what it is. Because it's a 4115 mAh battery, and it's driving that Snapdragon 765G, along with that 90Hz 1080p AMOLED panel. And when I do need to charge it up, Warp Charge 30T will get it up to 60%, 70%-ish in about half an hour. Now, I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a blue cable with the phone, because OnePlus's whole thing with this phone has been like, oh, it's blue, look, it's blue, we've got Nord Blue. And they even sent out these pre-order package things that you could scan with an AR app on your phone, and then it would show you the phone in your hand with a countdown for when it was being announced. This was also in blue, so I was just kind of surprised. I imagine it's for cutting costs, because obviously they would have to create a whole new supply line. But on that supply line note, the OnePlus Nord has had many people pointing out the fact that it looks oddly familiar for something that the company keeps saying was changed last minute. While right, I do actually believe that this probably was changed last minute. If you remember, towards the end of last year, there were leaks of a OnePlus 8 Lite or a OnePlus Z. I think that that's what this device was, and that's corroborated by the fact that in an interview with MKBHD, Carl Pei said that they changed the design very last minute and showed off a bunch of other designs. Now, these other designs were never shown in the leaks, so make of that what you will. But there was definitely another device design that leaked through OnLeaks, and even our own Max Weinbach was saying that there would be likely a OnePlus Z. So something did change very late in the development cycle of this device. That seems to be a given. It just depends on how much was changed. But onto that design, many people have pointed out the likeness to multiple Realme phones. Now, I actually have one of them here. The Realme X50 Pro 5G has a pretty stark similarity to the OnePlus Nord. The camera placement is the same dual front-facing cameras, and the body itself is also the same size. Now, I don't know, because there's actually multiple devices that this looks like. There's the Realme X50 as well, which looks very similar. It's just, I think people are just pointing out to the fact that there are devices on the market that are cheaper and provide more or even just the same value. And that's a problem for OnePlus, and something that we're going to get into later when we're talking about the price. Performance-wise, this device is snappy. The 765G is perfect. 12GB of RAM is enough. We got the 12GB of RAM variant, but honestly, I mean, 8GB of RAM is fine. Most devices launching now don't have 12GB of RAM. Some even just launched with 6. The Poco F2 Pro that we reviewed just last week also had 6GB of RAM. But aside from that, performance is great. I've been playing games on it. You're not going to be emulating 3DS games. You're not really going to be emulating Dolphin, because this is somewhere around the 845, 855 range of processing power, and the graphics card in it is actually the Adreno 625, which is obviously pre-630, which is in the Snapdragon 845. So you aren't getting that super good gaming performance, but it does the job. You will be able to run nearly all the games on the Play Store just fine. So getting into then the cameras, there's 4 cameras on the back. You've got your primary sensor, you've got your ultra wide, you've got your depth sensor, and you've got your macro sensor. Now, the macro sensor and the ultra wide just don't actually have autofocus, which is weird. And the primary sensor is fine. It's a OnePlus camera. It's what you've kind of come to expect. It has the same camera sensor as the OnePlus 8, so when people were asking for camera samples, and obviously we couldn't give them yet, it was kind of easy to just say, well, I mean, this has the same camera sensor as the OnePlus 8, so go look at that. So when I was comparing my photos to the OnePlus 8, I'm showing you my camera samples right now, the colors and the sharpness and everything all looked pretty similar. This is basically a camera of a OnePlus 8, except the additional cameras feel like they're kind of just added for show. They don't seem too useful. On top of that, the front-facing camera is decent, and you've got your ultra-wide-angle lens so that you can use that for taking groups of pictures with friends, so you can fit more into the shot, or so you can fit more behind you, that kind of thing. It's pretty useful, but again, it kind of just feels like something added for show, or because they had to if they were taking the chassis of another device. On top of that then, you also have the issue of software updates, because as I mentioned, you'll probably get your 2 years or 3 years with the security updates, but there's no guarantees, and there's no guarantees for the open beta scheme either. Now the other issue then, of course, is the fact that people feel that the OnePlus Nord has been overhyped. I can kind of see that because the company seemed to be kind of trickling out information, and as a result then many different news sites had to kind of report on bits individually, and what would happen is if you didn't do that, another site would do it and then you would end up losing out. So while obviously it's up to the websites themselves to publish articles responsibly and understand, like, just to update older articles, at the same time then if they do that they might lose out on viewership, so it's kind of a catch-22 where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So the Nord has been criticized for being overhyped because it has kind of just been in the news cycle consistently for 2 weeks. I can see where that's coming from, because I don't think this is a device that's worthy of such hype. There's nothing hugely special about it. It looks nice, it performs well, it takes okay pictures for the price, and you're probably getting that software support for the 2 or 3 years. But for €399, you can probably get much better devices at this price point. You can get a Poco F2 Pro for a little bit more than this, and you get a flagship device with a better camera, a much bigger battery, and sure, you don't get 90Hz, but you get a 60Hz really good Amoled panel. And then of course if you actually go less, so you can go in the UK for £299, you can get a Realme X50, which has a 120Hz IPS display. Sure, it's IPS, but it's a 5G device, it's got a 765G chipset, and it's a perfect competitor to the Nord while being £79 cheaper in the UK. £79 is a lot of money when it's a third of the device's cost that you were originally looking at. Obviously when manufacturers are building devices, they choose parts to put into their devices and then they choose how to price it. And it feels like the Nord has been undercut in a lot of markets already before it's even actually come to the market. Between Realme and Xiaomi and Oppo, all of these companies have devices for similar prices or less that would probably offer better value. Now you're getting the brand when you buy the OnePlus Nord, and you're getting that software support, and you're getting Oxygen OS. So these are things that maybe are worth it to you, but for many it may be easier to just try and take a look at other options and see what's there on the market, because there's so much that people can get with a little bit of research, and maybe you could even get a second-hand phone. You get last year's flagships for probably around the same price. All in all, the OnePlus Nord is in a strange position, and I'm not sure I entirely recommend it. I like it, and I use it, and it's one of those devices that generally when I get a device for review, if I get a mid-range, I use it as my daily driver, and then I revert back to the last flagship that I used prior. I still have my SIM card in this, because it feels like a flagship for the most part, but there are things that it is missing. I have brought my Poco F2 Pro with me just to have a better camera in places, when after a while I got annoyed using this because it felt that I couldn't get the pictures that I wanted. Things like that, where it falls down. I'm happy to use it as a daily driver, but I'm not happy to spend €399 on it when I know there are much better deals that I can get out there. The phone itself is good, the price is a little bit high for me. You get NFC, you don't get wireless charging, you get fast wired charging 30 watt through Warp Charge 30T, you get a decent camera, you get good performance, you don't get the best performance, you don't get the best camera, and you get an okay battery. All of these things culminate to make a decent mid-range smartphone, because it feels like there are no highs in terms of the specs, but there are no lows either. It's just a perfect middle of the pack option. And I think there are very few use cases where you can kind of look at it and go, well, this is the only option I can get for this price that meets the needs that I have. I don't know what people think about this yet, because I haven't had the time to talk to people about it. I haven't spoken to other reviewers about what they thought about the OnePlus Nord, but I'm interested to know what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments what you think of the OnePlus Nord. This has been Adam Conway with XDA TV. Thanks for watching.